That clear itself later, do I have to do it?
Oh, that's okay.
I don't even know how she.
Please, everybody mute themselves online. As far as exits, the closest exit is at the back of the room here. You go through that door. There's a short hall and you go out the back. The other exit would be to go out the door that you come in through the front door that you came through. Restrooms, if you go out to this door, left down the hall to the large set of doors you came through. Just before that, you'll turn left again and they're down the hall there. Want to make sure everybody's signed in. That's a very important thing. FEMA and PEMA track attendance at these meetings and participation, so we need to demonstrate that. So if you haven't done so and you're in person, please make sure you sign in. Those online, I'm asking that you please leave your name, your municipality or organization, and your email in the chat so that we can document that you're in attendance today. And as questions for the meeting today, we'll take questions as we proceed. If we start to get a lot of questions, maybe we'll put those on hold to the end. But if you have questions, please, for now, just raise your hand and we'll try to address them. Those who are online, if you could put your questions in the chat, we have people monitoring the chat. And we'll try to make sure that we address your questions as well. So again, why are we here today? We're here for the York County Hazard Mitigation Plan. We're required to update the plan every 5 years, and this is the kickoff meeting for that plan. Why is the county and municipalities involved? Well, the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 amended the Stafford Act, and as part of that amendment, it required that municipalities and the county have a hazard mitigation plan in order to qualify for certain types of hazard mitigation grants. Those are grants related to hazard mitigation efforts. I want to make sure that you're aware. It doesn't mean municipalities won't qualify for emergency assistance. It's just for those specific grants related to hazard mitigation. And what we've been told as of late, it does mean that municipalities need to participate in this process to be able to have the plan approved for their municipality as part of our adoption process. Oops. Okay. Who's involved in the plan? As far as the plan update itself, we have a working team at the YCPC. Joe Samora, he's our GIS person. Wade Gilbrooks, our assistant director. Again, I'm Roy Libergood, and two other people are involved in the process. Ann Walker is not here today. She's another planner on our team, and my supervisor, Pam Schellenberger. As far as consultants to help us with the plan update, we've hired 2 consultants. The first one is Marketing Works. They're helping us with public outreach and participation. You might have met Mike Forthman when you came in. He's one of our representatives from Marketing Works. Another consultant that we're currently in the process of bringing on board is Tetra Tech. They're going to help us with our dam profile and identifying high hazard potential dams in the county and completing the work related to that, because that is something new that we'll be undertaking this time around. We also have a planning team guiding this process who meets once a month. The planning team consists of subject matter experts. It includes EMA, transportation, education, health, water, historic, aging, and others. So we have a pretty robust planning team with a wide array of representation. As I've just mentioned, of course, our York County municipalities are involved. All 72 municipalities are required to participate in the plan in order, again, to have it approved as their plan at the end. We also have been doing an extensive outreach through Marketing Works to our stakeholders and public. And that includes everyone else who's living, working, passing through, adjacent or impacted by hazard in your counties. So we've been doing a pretty extensive direct contact and marketing through online Facebook, Instagram, things like that to try to get people involved. Give you a little bit of background on the plan itself. This is our 4th iteration of the plan. We started, our first plan was approved in 2008. Again, it was a multi-municipal plan, and 68 municipalities approved that or adopted that plan by resolution as their plan. Our last update was done in 2019. That was a complete update and reformat of the plan, and 72 municipalities adopted that at the time. So we have full participation as part of the last plan. Some of the timeframes that we're looking at for the plan update include, we started this process in 2021 by applying for a hazard mitigation grant under COVID-19. We did receive full funding. Could everybody please make sure they're muted online? Thank you. We did receive full funding through the HMGP for this plan update. Our grant performance is from 8-5 2022 to 8-5 2025. But however, our plan expires on February 6th of 2024. So we need to have an updated plan by that date. We're a little bit behind. Our original time frame for this was 2 years, but it took us a little bit of time to secure the grant and finalize that. So we need to actually have a draft plan in place by November of 2023, so we can go through the adoption process to get the plan approved. So we're on a little shorter time frame, but I think we can do it. We should have enough time to get a plan in place that I think that will be a benefit to everybody. This slide shows our time frame. What we're looking at as far as major events right now through the planning process. Currently, we just made live a survey this week. That's a municipal assessment survey. And through that survey, you'll be able to there's 2 surveys, one's for municipalities and one for our stakeholders. The municipal survey, you'll be able to identify hazards that have impacted you since the last plan update. You'll be able to provide impact on what your concerns are in regards to hazard mitigation plan, some feedback on goals and objectives, anything along that line in the plan. We're looking for your feedback, and you'll have the ability to do that. That survey is online. We will be sending out links directly to municipalities to make sure that you have those links to be able to apply or to reply to the survey. And do again need all municipalities to at least have one survey submitted so that we can show participation. Again, our next major event is today's meeting. This is our first public kickoff meeting, just to provide an overview of the plan itself and the process, and kind of get into what hazards are identified, and any gaps, and get some feedback from municipalities and our stakeholders. Our next major event will be a second survey. That survey will be asking municipalities and our stakeholders to identify or rank the hazards in your county, so that we can see what levels of importance we need to place on actions to address those hazards. And we're hoping to have all the background information where we've profiled the hazards, ranked them, and we'll be able to present that information to you in June as part of a public meeting. And also as part of that meeting, we'll start the discussion of what actions need to be taken in the county to be able to address those hazards. Our final public meeting is slated for October. That meeting will be a meeting to get comments on the draft plan itself before we submit it to FEMA for their approval. And then FEMA and FEMA, like I said, they reserve a 3-month time frame for their review. So they'll be looking at the plan from October through January. And then we hope to have the county adopt the plan as part of a public hearing in January, and then any follow from municipalities as far as adoption on their part by resolution would take place after that. So usually that there's like a 1 or 2 month time frame there that municipalities adopt the plan. We're usually fine within that time frame, as long as, even if a major hazard would happen to take place, hopefully not, we still would be covered, because all you'd have to do is make sure that you adopt that within a timely manner, and you'd be covered under the plan for those grants that may be available. Some of the requirements we're required to follow as part of the update, there are 3 main documents. The first document is the FEMA Local Mitigation Planning Policy Guide. As you'll see, it hasn't been officially approved, it isn't official until April of 2023. But since we're falling within that time range, we're required to meet the requirements of the new updated policy. We're also, and that policy, it pretty much lays out the guidance for what's required to be in the plan. And there is a crosswalk included in that where we have to show that we've provided the information that is required. And the other document we're required to follow is the FEMA Standard Operating Guide. That guide, it kind of lays out the strategy for consistency with the state plan, as far as how the plan has to be laid out, how the information is displayed, and things like that. And it also lays out a process to undertake for the plan. And then the other document, this is kind of new this time around, is the grant scope of work. That was, it's a kind of another layer. It includes additional items that we're required to include in the plan in order to get approval of the grant. So there's additional requirements that have been stated that we'll do to ensure that we're meeting FEMA and PEMA's requirements, as well as going a step above to qualify for the grant money. Is there some? Please, everybody online, make sure you mute it. If you have questions, if you put it in the chat, thank you. You might be wondering what is hazard mitigation? The general definition is any sustained action to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to life and property from a hazard event. The primary purpose of planning being to systematically identify policies, actions, and tools to address those hazards. So we have a 2-part process. One, we got to identify the hazard. We have to it's actually a 4-part process. We have to identify the hazard. We have to profile the hazard. We have to rank the hazard. And then we need to have actions in place to address the hazards, excuse me. Pre-disaster mitigation involves actions taken in advance of a hazard event to interrupt the cycle of damage and reconstruction and repeated damage. The grant that used to be called pre-disaster mitigation grant, and now it's referred to as BRIC. And that's building resilient infrastructure and communities is the grant funding stream associated with pre-disaster mitigation. As far as that is on an annual cycle, the HMGP, which we got this through, comes after a grant is declared. I mean, excuse me, a disaster is declared, and the HMA is focused on those who have flood or have fallen into the flood insurance program. As far as what hazards we're addressing after 9/11, we now address human-made hazards as well as natural hazards. Our current plan consists of 8 sections. There's an introduction that kind of provides the background, the purpose, and the scope of the plan. There's a community profile. Goes over geography, demographics, and land use. Kind of covers who and what could be impacted by these hazards. There's a planning process. We're required to document everything in the plan. So again, I've asked you to make sure that you're signed in You've noted what municipalities you're representing, so we need to demonstrate that in the plan. There's also a risk assessment. The risk assessment is kind of, well, I think is the interesting part of the plan. It identifies the hazards and then profiles them as far as the location of the hazards, magnitude, the occurrence, vulnerability, and also, as I mentioned before, we rank the hazards as far as their impact. Excuse me, let me grab some water here. The next section is the capability assessment. That's an inventory of all the planning and regulatory tools and resources available to use. As I said, we'll be doing a capability assessment survey as well to get an idea of what municipalities, how comfortable they are as far as the tools that are available and being able to implement those tools. And we'll also be doing one for the public to kind of assess what they think is important as far as capability and how things are being addressed. There's also a mitigation strategy. It covers the goals, objectives, and mitigation techniques, and an action plan. And that will again be part of our second meeting. We were reaching out and we'll be asking for actions identified by each of our 72 municipalities. We're required to have at least one action from all 72 municipalities in order for the plan to be approved. And then there's a section on plan maintenance. It covers the further update of the plan, how the plan will be monitored, how it will be implemented, continued public involvement. And our final section of the plan, it just covers how the plan was adopted and the process taken. And also we include the plan review crosswalk to show that we have met all the requirements of FEMA as far as where that information is located in the plan. Hazard identification. Currently, our plan identifies 23 hazards. So there's 15 natural hazards. They include drought, earthquakes, extreme temperatures, flooding, hailstorms, hurricanes, tropical storms, nor'easters. They're bunched together. Invasive species, landslides, lightning strikes, pandemic and infectious disease, radar exposure, subsidence and sinkholes, tornadoes and windstorms, wildfires and winter storms. I think most of those are probably self-explanatory. Is there any questions on those?
Yeah, how's the pandemic / infections disease considered natural hazard?
It's natural, and then it's a naturally occurring. I mean, it could be probably put under terrorism too, if someone would spread it intentionally, but infectious disease, I mean, that's a naturally occurring thing that happens. It's the way we treat it. Is that?
It just seems out of place compared to the other items on the list, that's all.
Okay. Yeah, it's not initiated, hopefully not, by man himself. There's 8 human-made hazards. They include civil disturbance, dam failure, environmental hazards being pipeline leaks, spills associated with transportation, or point-specific leaks that are associated with facilities. There's also levee failure, mass food and animal feed contamination, nuclear incidents, terrorism, and urban fire and explosion. The 2018 state plan identifies 33 hazards. Those hazards that are not addressed in our plan that are currently addressed in the state plan include coastal erosion, building and structure collapse, cyber terrorism, environmental hazard, coal mining, that's what the EH is environmental hazard, conventional oil and gas wells, unconventional wells, opioid addiction, transportation accident, and utility interruption. I will say that some of those don't apply to us, and the ones that we don't cover, like transportation and utility interruption, those are usually associated with the hazard itself. Like a transportation accident might be caused by a winter storm or some other factor involved, flooding or something like that, or utility interruption, that might be a result of a winter storm or a hurricane or what have you. So that is why we don't include those two right there. And again, there's, next slide here, we'll explain some of the other ones that aren't applicable. Some other hazards that others throughout the country might look at, we have lands, glaciers, dust storms, volcanoes, expansive soils, tsunamis. Of course, we don't have those in your county. As far as the state plan, they aren't applicable to us. Well, we don't have any coastal erosion. I think the only ones that probably qualified for coastal erosion would be Erie County. We don't have any coal mining because of our current geography. We don't have any conventional oil and gas wells either, and we don't have any unconventional wells as well. So those would not apply that I'm aware of right now. I have looked at the mining, and there is one mine that was identified in northern York County, but I'm pretty sure that was a misidentification because we don't have, again, coal underneath us. So I'm not sure why that was there, but I'm not aware of any of the other ones as well. Some of the hazards that could be added include building and structure collapse, cyber terrorism, opioid addiction, transportation accidents, and utility interruption. These numbers right here on this slide show how many other counties address these. As far as building and structure collapse, there's 14 counties that address that. Cyber terrorism, 4 others. Opioid addiction, there's 2 others at this time that I'm aware of. I'm guessing that those are probably the larger cities of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh that include those. There's transportation accidents. That is addressed by 55 others. Again, I'm not sure how they address that because most of those are transportation accidents that are either just regular accidents or they're a result of one of the other hazards that we have identified. Same thing for utility interruption. Some other ones that other counties identify include fuel shortage. There's only a few that identify these: blight, bombs, solar weather, crime, and more, drowning, and disorientation. So this is I'd like to stop here and have a little discussion at this point. If those online could put in the chat if there's any hazards that we've gone over or any others that you would like addressed by the plan, please put those in the chat. And anybody in the room, is there anything that you feel we should be looking at? Bill?
Cyber terrorism one you have there, is cyber addressed anywhere else currently in one of the other hazards?
We would consider that under, I don't know that it's called out completely, but we could put that under terrorism and make that a section under terrorism and I believe be able to supply a good summary of that in that section.
It's a growth industry now.
Yeah. Excuse me, you say it's a priority right now?
It's one of the FEMA national priorities.
Okay.
So I feel it should be.
So as long as we call it out. Okay, yeah, we could do that.
Chad, Laura Fleming says transportation interruption and agricultural animal disease pandemic.
Okay, transportation interruption. Yeah, again, I think most of the time when transportation is interrupted, it's going to be as a result of either human error or it's going to be a result of one of the other hazards. So I don't know that we can mitigate human error, and the result could be another hazard like a environmental hazard where you have a spill because of the truck. But again, that would be covered under one of our other hazards. Go ahead.
On the transportation interruptions, I would say that I think it should be its own hazard because, you know, you can look at structural failures. We have long-term construction projects that are going on or planned in York County.
Okay.
And I think there's you know, especially with the 83 corridor being redesigned right through the heart of York. You know, if there's an accident or that's out of commission now, the detour routes and just, I think there's a whole opportunity for that to cascade into something bigger. And it wasn't the result of anything else, you know?
Okay,
You know, they're working on 83 and they have construction plans for the 462 bridge between York and Lancaster. That's gonna be a long-term project. You know, and if something were to happen structurally to say the Route 30 bridge, you know, they've identified before in the past where the bridge seams were had issues. You know, I can see those being the result, you know, there being a large transportation disruption and it not being the cause of something else.
okay, yeah, we can add that to the list for discussion by our planning team. And I should make you aware, we are, again, recording this and I have somebody documenting all the questions. So this will all be taken into account as part of our planning team discussions as far as what we need to do to proceed forward. Go ahead, Wade.
Hey, Roy. Right, I'm sorry, we have an online question about opioid addiction. Can you explain why that is a hazard?
Opioid addiction has a significant impact on society as a whole, as far as deaths and costs, both in lives and economically. And also the state had, they had made a declaration in regards to opioid addiction. So we're required to consider any hazards that impact us that were declared by the state of Pennsylvania. So Governor Wolf did make a declaration regarding that. So I think that is why that is included. Yeah, Mike.
Really, disorientation, can you give us a little bit more?
What I gather from that is that people who get lost or those who are maybe have aging or a mental diminished mental capacity, I guess, where they might get lost. That's what I took that to mean. I'm more from the state plan, so there wasn't, these are just what other counties had identified. They're not identified by the state plan, but these are what other counties were listed as having, so I put them up here for
Some of them get a little
discussion.
bit far afield from what you would consider normal hazard.
Right.
Yeah, they do. But each county is allowed to identify what they want to identify, so that's what they've chosen.
Flavor.
Yeah.
Hey, Roy, I've got a follow-up to the opioid question from Dr. Bolton. He was asking, how do you mitigate opioid addiction? What are maybe some examples? And outside of outreach and training education seems that would be another category.
That is a very good question. A lot of these hazards are hard to mitigate without, it mainly falls to education or outreach or funding to address the issue. I think gentleman from Red Cross used to always say, how do you mitigate a winter storm? Well, the mitigation is response. Make sure that you're prepared to respond to it.
Instead of opioid addiction, it'd probably be better to list it as a public health concerns or public health concerns, because depending on the flavor, it could be sexual diseases or things along those lines. I mean, it's going to depend on the pendulum of.
Yeah, I think that was brought up at our planning team meeting. I can't remember how it was referenced. Ted, do you remember? Were you the ones that had brought that up about referring to that as a different?
I was saying maybe expand it to drug addiction
Yeah.
rather than just opioid. I know we focused on opioid
Mhm.
addiction here in the county and also nationwide, but various parts of the country have challenges with different drugs. It's not always.
It's two ways we're focused
Yeah.
Yeah.
on one topic.
Yeah. And again, we don't have to cover all these just for discussion and trying to get input on what you all feel that we should include or need to address as part of the plan. So.
Along those lines, I would say that if we have to address the state one, we should. And, okay, the other counties came up with those ideas, but you can go down rabbit holes and try to divide and divide and divide. I think in a top level category makes it, it kind of keeps things in a standard state. So everybody can, who's in this kind of business can kind of follow it.
Yeah.
Keep on splitting hairs you know, to the point about opioids versus other drugs, why don't we just talk about substance abuse?
Yeah.
Or, you know, it goes back to the public health thing,
Mhm.
because, you know, there's alcohol abuse too, so.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, no.
there's certain things, I mean, it started out as natural hazards, and then again, it's growing to include a host of other things, so, and you can't get really down, like, sit down a rabbit hole whenever you start talking about things, so, again, we need to decide what's important for York County to include in our plan. Yes, sir.
I see solar weather is listed up there. It's three behind it. I've always been interested in, space weather in general, how it can affect, our infrastructure, cascading effect, and this falls right in with an EMP, a man-made or a terrorist or a natural. Is that something?
That again would probably be a subset if we wanted to address it under terrorism. We would include that as, and then as far as the impacts, you would identify either monetary facilities or whatever that would be impacted under that.
Are there any mitigation efforts that are?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
No, we'd have to research it as part of the plan update. Yeah, a lot, like, again, a lot of this, it might be education outreach, it might be some funding along those lines. A lot of them, it might be response, being prepared to respond to it. Might be the mitigation. Sorry.
Online, Rebecca Bruce, it says, I can appreciate that volcano is under, not applicable, but any activity elsewhere in the country may have an impact on our region via soot, air quality, which may be able to plan, which we may be able to plan for, or at least have a communication plan for as the weather moves west generally.
And I can appreciate that, and that could very well happen. If Yellowstone goes, I've been told from my college days that we're all in trouble. So, but, yeah, right now, we're required to plan for what's in York County or adjacent, so that would probably be outside our range, I would think.
Roy,
Yes.
what? I yield the floor to this gentleman, he's been trying.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I
So,
apologize.
I saw you didn't identify transportation accidents in the county plan. Is that something that you're looking at, or is there a reason why you didn't include that? Because I'm thinking of the big thing recently, or all the rail accidents and
Yeah.
the rail activity that goes through your county.
Yeah, again, the way we looked at them previously, and we can go back and read in the previously plans, is that, like, if a rail accident happened, it's gonna be the impacts. If it's a hazardous material, that's gonna fall under hazardous materials or environmental hazards in this case in our plan.
Okay, so
And we identify all the rails and a buffer on those and the impacts they could have.
So then, I mean, I'm just trying to, why 55 other counties would identify that as a,
That's,
and.
they
but you're
originally
saying
started out
you're
looking at
covering
those.
it somewhere else, so.
Yeah. I guess it all depends on how you look at it. They're looking at it as an individual hazard. We're looking at it as associated with other hazards. And we can change that if we need to.
If we're going down rabbit holes, one of the things that I feel very strongly that we have overlooked on our list is flash flooding, which is an entirely different animal than your regular stream overflow flooding. Flash flooding, especially talk to people in not Hanover, but Pelham and some of the areas in the city where flash flooding hits, it overwhelms the infrastructure. And one of the big feeders of flash flooding is development in other adjacent municipalities and other areas. But at no point, in my mind, we need to pull flash flooding out as a separate category than your normal stream, creek, or river flooding.
I can address that. We do address different forms of flooding, under flooding, and flash flooding is in there. For the plan itself, we identify that and we identify what areas get impacted. Now, we can't identify everything, but like you said, there's new areas that are flooding all the time based on new development or stormwater facilities that are overwhelmed. We do acknowledge that it's a problem. We've actually been discussing that with EMA just recently. So that might be something we need to look at in the plan as well. But we do, so I mean, it's covered because we're looking at, these are the areas that could be impacted by flash flooding as far as what we know. again, there's always areas, flooding, they always say flooding can occur anywhere,
Right.
depending on how much rain you get and, surface that you're dealing with, but we do cover that. In the
By
plan.
acknowledging it and focusing on it, we are giving a voice to the municipalities that deal with it. We're going to have a greater opportunity to get flooding and grants to mitigate that.
Yeah,
Whereas it's probably easy to get mitigation grants to deal with something on Cadorus Creek or something large. But flash flooding is very,
yeah, I mean, we can definitely add more definition and more discussion there on that, because we do call it out, but maybe we need to provide more focus on that in the plan.
Somebody agreed with that online as well.
Okay.
Flash flooding.
Is there any other questions on that or comments? This is all good input. Well, again, we'll be taking this back to our planning team and discussing that. And also as part of this, again, the survey that's going out now, we're collecting input on this as well. So take all that and see what we need to do. All right, if I'm not hearing anything, we're going to move on to goals and objectives. Again, the survey that's going out, it kind of covers goals and objectives. You have a chance to comment on those and see if they need to be adjusted or changed. But right now, we have 4 goals associated with the plan. Those include to reduce the possibility of injury or death to county residents and potential losses or damages to critical facilities, infrastructure, and property. And it goes on to mention all the hazards that we currently address. We also have encouraged a coordinated effort among the county, its 17 municipalities, and those entities, both public and private, and dealing with hazard mitigation planning. We also have, our third goal is to promote proper planning and disaster resistant future development. And our fourth goal is to increase public understanding, support, and demand for hazard mitigation. As far as planning, that's kind of our core, our base objective is to education and awareness to make sure people are aware. That's where it kind of all starts at. We have 10 objectives identified in the plan to achieve those goals. And our current plan identifies 135 actions. As part of the update, we'll be analyzing the actions to see if they're still valid or have been addressed. And we'll be reaching out to get new actions from municipalities to include in the plan. Is there any questions on the goals, objectives, or any recommendations based on what we see here? That's goal 1 and 2. Again, they're broad objectives, but they're meant to be that way. And then we focus them down in the objectives, and then where it hits the road is the current actions to address them. Okay, moving on. We're, as part of the plan update, to start the process, we're required to do a gap identification. As part of some of my responsibilities, I attend a lot of meetings throughout the year, education, information on the plan itself. We're required to meet certain expectations from FEMA and FEMA. As I said, as part of our grant, there was other requirements placed on us as part of the planning process. For this time around, we're looking at adding an executive summary to the plan. And I think that's a good thing because the plan itself is over 500 pages long. So there's a lot of information there. We're looking at climate change impact. We did address that in the previous plan, but we'll be adding sections under the profiles for each of the hazards to see how climate impacts each of the hazards, either increasing it. We'll also be looking at environmental justice and underserved communities, identifying the impact on those communities in the plan where we didn't do that before. We're looking at community lifelines. I believe FEMA and FEMA identified lifelines. We're looking at the different lifelines and addressing how the hazards can impact those. We'll also be looking at cascading impacts, how one hazard might trigger another hazard, vice versa or whatever, and what those impacts are. And a lot of what I've been hearing is plan integration, both within the hazard mitigation plan, integrating all the information in the plan, as well as integration with other planning documents, ordinances, and things like that. From the FEMA side of things, since there was more funding available this time, they allotted more money to do additional planning. So the high hazard potential dams, that was as part of that crosswalk I mentioned, that was always It wasn't a required element, but it could be done if you wanted to go above and beyond. And since that funding is available, they're requiring us to do the high hazard potential dams section of those requirements. From FEMA, what we heard from the last go around, every time we complete a plan, they provide a checklist of things that for consideration as part of the next plan. They're asking us to integrate the community profile into the mitigation conversation. So they want us to take that base information and better describe the impacts throughout the plan whenever we identify these hazards. Our participant invite list, they would like to know that. Before we had general list of who was invited and how we reached out. They want more specifics on that, and we can do that this time. We have generated quite a list of direct email contacts and things like that for this plan. And those are all laid out in our grant agreement again, as far as who we're required to reach out to. They asked us to provide a single list of participants for each event. Before, we had broken it down by planning team, public, stakeholders, things like municipalities. They just want a single list of participants, and that's fine. We can do that. They asked us to specifically note how public input was incorporated in plan. In the past, a lot of the input we got was pretty general and didn't really change anything in the plan. So we need to better show how we've addressed public input. We're also required to provide more description of larger hazard events. I think we did a good job of that with flooding, and some of the others might be hard because we might not have had a large event. It might just be a general hazard that could impact us. We might not have had that event, so but they would like us to try to provide more description. Those online, if you could please mute, please. And then they also had asked us to maybe look at combining some hazards together. I will say with that, when we try to follow the state plan, we're required to follow their definitions of what the hazards are. So we're trying to be consistent, as this gentleman here said, so everybody's kind of talking off the same page and definition. So that one, I don't know that there's much we would be able to do with, unless we wanted to get rid of some of the hazards, which is always a possibility. I don't know. The other thing is a lot of our recommendations were for education and awareness. They want us to kind of go beyond that. As I mentioned before, for some of them, it might be hard to do that. As a county, if we don't receive input back from municipalities, we can't really assign municipalities to anything. Again, this isn't a requirement on your part. You're participating in order to be covered under the plan in case you would want to apply for future grants. So that's kind of in Pennsylvania, that's kind of a hard one because we don't assign, municipalities have land use control and budgetary control, so we don't assign municipalities to tell them what to do. So that one right there is a lot of times we make recommendations that are very careful in our wording, how we do that. So they wanted us to put more emphasis on how we will consider or encourage identified actions. Again, that's the same thing. We use that wording because this isn't a requirement. It's a voluntary action on your part to be able to qualify for this funding and participate in this process. So we are kind of cautious on how we use our wording in the plan because we're not walking anybody into anything. Is there others gaps that anybody can think of that you've had concerns in regards to planning that might need addressed in the plan? I will say that the plan itself is pretty laid out. Everything, it lays out the requirements. They cover everything and how it's supposed to look, what needs to be included, things like that. When it comes to us, it comes down to what hazards we decide to address, what actions we decide to put in the plan to address those hazards, and how we rank the hazards. Those are, I mean, everything else is kind of laid out. We just have to put the information in there to support what we're doing. Is there any other gaps anybody would want to consider as far as the plan itself? Anything online? Okay. That brings us to our next steps. I encourage you, as I said, we've been doing a large amount of public outreach. I encourage you to go to our website. It's www.yorkhazmat.org. That website has all of our meetings, surveys, You can provide public comment on there. All the meeting notes from our planning team will be on there. All the public meeting information will be on there, as well as, like I said, reporters. So all that will be on that page. So that is your one-stop shop for getting all that information. I would encourage you to take the municipal and stakeholders assessment survey. Again, we'll get that out to the municipalities directly, and for our stakeholders, it is available online and will be noted on our Facebook and other outreach opportunities on our website to be able to participate in that. Our next survey will be the hazard risk survey. That will be probably delayed a little bit until next month, because I'll probably need one more meeting with our planning team to take all your comments into place and see which hazards we are considering. So I'll need a little time to address your comments and run that by our planning team to see what hazards or how the hazards are identified in the plan. So we do have that identified, I believe, for April, so it'd probably be later in April. Or, I mean, excuse me, we have it at the end of March. It'd probably be more like early April after I've had a chance to talk to our planning team and make those adjustments. Again, all the meeting information and will be posted online. We'll also, as we complete sections of the plan, have draft portions of it. We'll put that online as well, so you can look at it and get feedback online prior to the meeting at the end. With that, I'll open up to general questions. Go ahead, sir.
We also include this presentation.
Yes, this will be recorded. We'll go online and we'll be sending it out to those who come to town.
Can you repeat that? So there are some people are having issues if it's far back to your,
With the,
just that the presentation will be available.
okay, yeah, our presentation, this presentation will be available online as it's a YouTube video, right? Something to do it, is that?
Yeah.
It's like a YouTube video that you'll be able to watch, and the presentation. Again, all the other information available associated with the plan, meeting minutes, meeting notes, portions of the plan, anything like that will be available online, and you'll be able to register there as well. And we will also be taking public comments as a public comment thing. So anytime you feel like something comes up and you feel you want to provide, say, hey, did you think about this? Please, well, we want to hear. Again, you direct this process. So if we don't get feedback, we're going to proceed as thinking that we're covering everything. So if you have comments, we need to hear them.
Roy, along those lines, will the slide deck be a standalone, or do you have to watch the YouTube?
I think
They can both be available.
Okay, good, because I think some people would not want to, sit through the video, but they.
Yeah. So we can do slide deck as well.
Thank you.
I would just ask too that this group, as you're going to meetings and meeting with fellow colleagues from other municipalities, if you can help spread the word. We're trying our best to reach out to everybody to get participation, because it's required if they want to be eligible for certain funding. But when you're at your local meetings, we would ask that you pass the word, or at least the website, that they can get involved.
You'll be sending that link out to us individually?
Yeah, we can do that. I think we can do that again. I'm looking at the mic here. Mike's helping us with the outreach here. So, yep.
So will the survey also come out to us also, or it will go to?
It'll go to the municipalities. So what I'm intending to do is those who signed up to be directly involved in the plan, EMCs and our YCPC direct contacts, which would be the manager secretaries for all municipalities. So hopefully by doing that, we'll hit everybody from municipalities that need to be involved in live feedback. Ted, you had a question?
Yeah, Roy, say I'm someone who has no idea about hazard mitigation. Why should I care about this? And, how will it affect me? And then, how can I get involved?
I would say at the base level is that we all work and live in York County, so it helps to be aware of what's around you and how to respond on a personal level, and at the municipal level, what's being done to protect you in your municipality as far as these hazards that could impact you as far as flooding and things like that. If you want more information on that, we do have a a newsletter online. It's like a brief discussion of what hazard mitigation planning is. We also have the plan online, the current plan. And there's also a tool that you can go online and look at it. It's a hazard mitigation mapping tool that you can look at your individual house, where you live, and it'll identify what hazards may impact you and what you can do to address those hazards. There's not too many people have that. We did that because it all starts at that base level of where you live and work, so.
And that's at yorkhazmat.org.
Yorkhazmat.org will be anything related to the plan itself. If you want to see the tool, that would be at www.ycpc.org. Anything else? All right, well, I want to thank you all for attending today. I appreciate the input. Again, we'll take this back to the planning team and discuss and try to address this as best we can. Please, again, stay in contact with the webpage and check our social media. We'll reach out as much as we can. If you're aware of anybody that should be getting this information that's not, please let me know and we'll be happy to add them to our contact list. Thank you again. Have safe travels.
Thanks.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, donate water, coffee. If you have one time, please take some with you, because we have to carry them out with us.